All right. Well, I think Jeff got tied up on a phone call, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you everybody for joining for another rules webinar. I hope everyone is healthy and staying as sane as possible in quarantine. Before we get started, I'm just going to go over the housekeeping procedures for today. If you have any technical issues, please reach me in the chat feature and I will do my best to help you. Just be aware that most of the issues we've had with the webinars and attendees have been due to Wi-Fi bandwidth, so there might only be so much I can do, but I will certainly help, try to help my best. Please, if everyone can remain muted during the call, so we don't have any background noise while Clark is presenting, that would be great. If you do have questions, however, please put those into the chat feature as well, and I will prompt Clark as needed. There's one button on this platform I'd like you all to avoid. It says present screen or present now. Please do not click that. It will interrupt the presentation on the screen. If anyone has dialed in to the webinar today via their phone, please give me an email at mfrey@pjhq.com, and we'll make sure you get your MSR credit for today. Lastly, I wanted to mention we are recording this, and we've recorded all of our webinars to date, but we're having some technical issues getting them up on online. So we have them, they're just a little delayed to get onto the website, and I sincerely apologize for that. We are working through that now. So hopefully the end of this week or early next week, those will be up. All right, so today Clark Lewis is presenting again. Clark is our rules chair. He's the longtime golf professional at Valley Country Club, and he is an accomplished singer. And I'm sure Clark has a song planned for today. And with that, I will pass it over to him.
Thank you, Matt. And by the way, you don't have to make due apologies to anybody with the job you're doing. I was thinking of some patriotic songs to sing, and certain songs I'm sure you ladies and gentlemen, you know, are iconic and only like Frank Sinatra, My Way, things like that. The song that I was thinking about singing here is by Lee Greenwood, and of course it's God Bless the USA, and it's just such an iconic song that when you think of it, you think of Lee Greenwood. So I was trying to sing it, and I wasn't too happy with the result. So what I'm going to do today is recite it because it's a beautiful piece of poetry, and you know, poetry is just a song is just poetry put to music. So if you will, this is God Bless the USA. If tomorrow all the things were gone I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I'd thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I'd gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, and New York to LA, well, there's pride in every American heart. And it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I'd gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. I hope you enjoyed that, as I enjoyed doing it. Great song. I guess it's time to dive into this. And before I do that, I want to I want to set the record straight about one thing. I'm getting some comments about thanking me for organizing this, but I want to make it clear how this all came about. We were going to do our live rules seminar and at Commonwealth National, and that was before the nasty COVID-19 came about. And so Jeff Surrett, our executive director, had the idea to do a webinar. And we were talking about it. Tom Karpus and myself were talking about it. And I have to say that I rely on Tom for guidance and counsel as I go through all these things. I call him the godfather of rules around here. And even though he's a much younger man, I look to him for guidance. And he suggested that a 6-hour webinar would be a little too long. That we might not have such a good attendance if we had a 6-hour webinar. So we came up with the idea of the 2-hour ones that we're doing now. And so I want to thank him, and I want to thank Jeffrey and our rules committee, Alice and Jeff and our other members. I want to thank you for being so receptive to this. And now let's get started. We're going to talk now about Rule 17, penalty areas. Matt, you can still hear me, can't you?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, good. Okay, good. So here's the purpose. This is a quickie here. We have options for a ball in a penalty area, options after playing a ball from a penalty area, and then sometimes there's no relief under other rules for a ball in a penalty area. And I bet you can kind of guess what they are. And this presentation you got a definition here, obviously. And then you got to figure out, is your ball in there or is it not in there? And when you play from a penalty area right now, this is a new thing. The same rules are used that when you play from shots from a general area. And that used to be a little different way back when, which we'll call way back when, 2018. The penalty options for taking relief outside a penalty area, you know what they are. Now you have mandatory relief procedures when all or part of a penalty area is a no-play zone. No play zone. We'll talk about the no-play zone. Usually, what do they call that? Environmentally sensitive areas, things like that. Or could even be a beautification area. After making a stroke in a penalty area, what the penalty relief options are if the ball is still in the penalty area or outside the penalty area, but return to it is required. Now that used to be called 26-2. And that was always a hard rule to know and to figure out. But the USGA, I have to say, has done a marvelous job of making it much clearer for us as rules officials and for you as players. Now here's our question, which we'll get back to later. And once again, our purpose. And you see there's going to be a lot of repetition here. 17 is a specific rule for penalty areas, which are, what are they? They're bodies of water or other areas defined by the committee. And we talked about that, I think Tom talked about that on Tuesday, where a ball is often lost or unable to be played. For one penalty stroke, you can get out of there and play from outside there. Now, our introduction, real quickly, is when is a ball in the penalty area? Once again, we get some repetition here. And once again, you can play a ball as it lies, obviously. We used to try to enumerate how many different ideas there were or how many options you had, and we always forgot the idea of play it. You can play it as it lies, but they've cleaned that up too, the idea of how many options you have. The relief for a ball that you don't find, but you know is in a penalty area, virtually certain concept. And what kind of relief you have for a ball in the penalty area, and when relief must be taken from interference by this dreaded no-play zone. No-play zone means you can't play from there. Now, once again, here's the definition. It's an area from which relief with one-stroke penalty is allowed if the player's ball comes to rest there. And here you see a young lady she's taken relief. She's done her measuring. We're gonna hit that hard constantly. Now we have the definition. It's any body of water on the course, whether or not marked by the committee. And we'll get into that a little later, how that works. C, pond, ditch, lake, river, surface drainage ditch, or other open water course, even if it doesn't contain water. Or any other part of the course that the committee defines as a penalty area. Now, we were talking about that, I think, on Tuesday, that we can do that now. We were always doing it up here in the Poconos because we have fairways that are, once you hit the ball off the fairway, you might as well forget it. You can't be bothered to play it. So a lot of the golf courses up here were doing this anyway. And now, even though there was no water there, and now it's okay. It's a kinder, gentler rules committee. Now, once again, we've got the 5 defined areas of the course, and we know what they are. Tom went over that the other day. It's we have the general area that covers everything on the golf course except the teeing area and the putting green of the hole you're playing, as Tom correctly used the article the other day, and penalty areas and bunkers. Bunkers now are separate, have their own separate part of the golf course. And there's 2 different kinds, you know this. There's yellow penalty areas and there's red penalty areas. And hopefully, Alice the other day said she owed $1 to the kitty because she said, now I can't think of the word anymore. She said hazard, and we have to throw $1 when we're talking rules if we say hazard anymore. So I'm going to try not to make that mistake. Yellows are marked with yellow lines or yellow stakes, and they give the player 2 relief options. We'll talk about that. And red penalty areas are marked with red lines and red stakes, and they give the player an extra lateral relief option, in addition to the 2 relief options available for the yellow penalty areas, and we will be talking about that in slides to come. Now, we have a hole like this in the Poconos, but the very similar to this, but the drive zone is all surrounded by trees. It's as you see, I don't see any red lines around this one, and they might have run out of paint, and there are no stakes. So this is very important. This is one I'm going to put this in the category of the exam wrecker. If a color of a penalty area has not been marked or indicated by the committee, it is treated as a red penalty area by default. Remember that. Put that in you exam takers. Now, very important. The edge of a penalty area extends both up and down below the ground, as you can see by this diagram here. And these diagrams are phenomenal. That means all ground and anything else, such as any natural or artificial object, inside the edge is part of the penalty area. Whether on, above, or below the surface of the ground. Important concept. Now, if the object is both inside and outside the edge, such as a bridge over the penalty area, or a tree rooted inside the edge, and the branches extend outside, and this is going to be different from when we're talking about abnormal ground conditions, but ground under repair. Then only the part of the object that is inside the edge is part of the penalty area. So if that tree extends out there and the ball's in it, it's not in the penalty area. And it should be defined by stakes, lines, or physical features. It's a new thing too. Now you see, there we have stakes, there we have lines. By the way, in that little picture there, if those lines weren't there, that would still be considered to be a penalty area, even though there was no water in it, unless the committee had stated otherwise. And then here's physical features. And I'm reminded that we had a little, we were talking, I think Mike Moses down at Concord Country Club called me. He had a situation down there where he had an area of, looked like fescue, and he wanted to I think it was on his 5th hole. I remember that as the first hole, but I think it's now the fifth hole, and he had a question there about can you define that with physical features? And the answer is yes, you can. And I think he came up with a real good idea on how to deal with that down at Concord. Okay. Now, when it's defined by stakes, the edge of the penalty area is defined by the line between the outside points of the stakes. Now, you see here, there's no lines down, just stakes. Sometimes that gets to be a little tough when you have a circuitous type of hazard. You have to have a lot of stakes. So the stakes are inside the penalty area, inside. And most often, they're going to be movable obstructions, unless the committee decides that it was so difficult to pound those things in there that they're going to make a special local rule to make them immovable. But that's not usually the case. Now, when you have here's the lines. Now the outside edge of the line, and the line itself is in the penalty area. And it's going to talk about what in a minute about what the stakes mean in that situation. Here we have physical features, as I mentioned with down at Concord, Mike Moses. I have these on my golf course, and I just let players go in there and hack away. But we could, I guess I could make those red penalty areas and define them without the lines. I'd have to be very careful. It gets a little tough. I would never do that in a high-level competition, because a player might get himself into trouble if he was not able to successfully figure out whether he was in or out of that penalty area. So the committee should say how the edge of a penalty area is defined. Now, when it's defined by lines or by physical features, stakes can be used to show where the penalty area is, but they have no other meaning. Remember that. They have no other meaning. Now, when the committee, for whatever reason, doesn't define the thing, how do you define it? How can you tell whether you're in that? Now, this is a very arbitrary situation, and we would actually hope that this doesn't happen. I mean, maybe they ran out of paint, or who knows why this would have happened, but it's defined by its natural boundaries, and that is where the ground slopes down to form the depression that can hold the water. So you can see it's not going to be too easy to determine whether your ball's in there. It's going to be a kind of a very arbitrary decision. So we hope that doesn't happen. Now, if an open water course usually doesn't contain water, which we mentioned, the drainage ditch or runoff area that's dry, maybe you have a rainy season, the committee may define that area of the may define that as part of the general area, which if those lines aren't there, then that would not be a penalty area. And then they would tell you how to play it, whether you got relief or not, as an obstruction. Now, here's our options. Penalty areas, once again, defined by either red or yellow. And this affects the player's relief options. Okay? Now, and remember this, and take this to heart, because I can't tell you how many times when I was officiating it, and even at a high level, I had to run over and try to stop a player who was taking relief from a lateral, well, in those days, lateral hazard, now lateral relief from a penalty area, red penalty area. And he took his drop, and then after he took the correct drop and the ball was in the proper place, he was standing in the the relief area or hazard in those days. And I could see that player reaching down to pick that ball up because he thought he couldn't hit it when he was standing in there. Remember, you may stand in that penalty area to play a ball outside the penalty area, including after taking relief from it. And I'd be running across the fairway, yelling and screaming, and I'd get over there, and the guy said, "What the heck are you doing?" And I said, "I'm trying to save you a possible one-stroke or two-stroke penalty, because if he had picked the ball up and then put it back, he'd have had two." Okay. Now, when is the ball in the penalty? It's in the penalty area when it lies on or touches the ground or anything else, such as any natural or artificial object, which we had discussed previously, inside the penalty area. It's when any part of the ball is above the edge or any other part of the penalty area. So if the ball is somehow, as this thing is, suspended in that, I guess you can see that in that little piece of grass there, that ball is in, as because we said it extends the penalty area, confines of the penalty area extend vertically upward and downward. Now, once again, we had discussed this the other day. We have a hierarchy here of when the ball is in two different situations. And in this case, if a ball is in the bunker, it's always going to go down to the penalty area. That's going to be the place, regardless if it happened to be the green and the penalty area. We discussed that the other day. That could be. It's always going to be in a penalty area. And another if part of the ball is in, as this says, in both parts. Okay. Now, you can play the ball as it lies, of course, in the penalty area and take penalty relief. And you can play under what I said before, under the same rules that apply to a ball in the general area. No special rules there in that blue box. In other words, right now you can move that loose impediment, which heretofore could not be done without penalty. Now, once again, the player may play a ball from outside the penalty area by taking penalty relief under Rule 17(1)D or 17(2), as we'll talk about. 17(2) has to do with a ball that's played from within the penalty area. And there you can see with those arrows pointing what the player is doing. Give you a minute to look at that. He has those options, all those different options there. Okay. Now, relief. This is the no play zone thing. You must take relief from interference by a no play zone in the penalty area. In other words, the ball can't be played as it lies when there's interference from a no play zone. Let's talk about that. This is our question. We'll talk about the penalty areas a little later. Exactly. Bodies of water. We're looking for false now. This always gets me when I wish they would never do false, but bodies of water are penalty areas by definition. Sounds pretty good. Areas that are not bodies of water, where balls are often not found, and if found, often not playable, may be marked as penalty areas by the committee. That sounds pretty good too. If a bridge is partly inside the lines defining a penalty area and partly outside those lines, the entire bridge is treated as in the penalty area. Let's think about that one. If a ball lies partly inside and partly outside a penalty area, it is treated as in the penalty area. So let's see what our answer is. And I think, knowing the erudition of my audience, I think there won't be any wrong answers here. And it's C. The part of the bridge that's outside that penalty area is, you're going to treat that as an obstruction. If the ball, it depends on where your ball is. Okay, that's going to be treated as an obstruction. Now, I have to say, I was at the seniors last year, the PGA seniors, and I got a call from one of our rules officials, Mr. Bill Clemmer, who is he's with Tom on the Champions Tour, and or I should say Tour of Champions, and he called me, and he's Mr. Clemmer, for those of you who don't know him, he's a good old boy, you know. He talks like this. He said, Clarky, he said, come on down here. He said, I need a second opinion down here on Rule 13, on hole 13. I happen to be up at the green. So I'm thinking to myself, a second opinion. Well, that usually means, are you in casual water? The player disagrees with the ruling that he got from the first rules official, Mr. Clemmer. So I went down there, and I was wondering what I was going to have to adjudicate. And here I see Mr. Tom Pernice with his ball on the bridge over a red penalty area. So I went up and I said, "Sir, how can I help you?" And Mr. Pernice said, "What are my options here?" Well, I said, "You're in an immovable obstruction inside the penalty area from which you get no relief. So you're either going to have to play your ball as it lies or take penalty relief under Rule 17. And then he questioned me. He said, is this thing marked correctly? I said, yes, it sure is. I said, the line goes around it, encircling that bridge or in the penalty area. He said, is it always marked like this? I said, well, in the 50 years that I've been playing golf or more, it always has been, yes. So he thought for a moment, and I really couldn't understand why he wanted a second opinion. But he he got some camera time, and he just played his ball as it lies and knocked it out and made a 5. So, but I was a little nervous about giving that second opinion until I got down there. Now, here's
Hey,
another
Clark,
question. Yes,
sorry
sir.
to interrupt. Rick Gibson asked if the ball is both in the bunker and penalty area, and it is deemed by default to be in the penalty area, can a player now ground their club and make practice swings?
No, if the ball is, in other words, we're saying a bunker is part of the penalty area.
I believe that's what he means. Yeah.
I don't think that can be. Tom, we can't have a bunker as part of a penalty area, can we?
Well, I think what he's thinking about is in that one slide you had the beach bunker. You had the red line going through it. And if the ball were on the line touching both conditions, we say that the ball is in the penalty area. So it is an interesting, it's a great question because when the ball's in the penalty area, remember, you can do everything in the penalty area you can do in the general area. So he could take practice swings, he could move loose impediments, he can ground the club, he can do all that stuff as long as he doesn't improve cats.
Right.
Because the restrictions for a ball in a bunker don't apply because the ball lies in the penalty area.
Okay. I'd never that's an excellent question, and that one gave me pause, certainly.
Well, think of who it came from. It came from Rick Gibson, who, I mean, he will come up with the best questions on the planet. That's just the kind of person he is.
Well, I congratulate him there. Okay, here's our second question. I think we're gonna go back to that. Now, here's an options for a ball in the penalty area. Suppose you don't find it, but look at that. Look at our sentence there. It's known or virtually certain that the ball came to rest in the penalty area. Well, the player can take relief if it's known or virtually certain, and we know what that definition is. So we can now use these rules correctly. And once the players put another ball into play or takes relief in this way, when it's known or virtually certain, you've done this, the original ball is no longer in play. You've proceeded correctly. Once that ball leaves your hand, you can't play your original ball, even if it's found, as it says, on the course and before the end of the 3-minute search time. You've proceeded correctly. Now, if a player's ball is in a penalty area, including when it is known or virtually certain to be in there, and you didn't find it, the player has these options. And you can watch how these unfold on this thing. You've got stroke and distance relief. And remember, you can take stroke and distance relief anytime, in any situation. Knock it down the fairway 320 yards. In the middle of the fairway, perfect. For whatever reason, I'm going to take stroke and distance, back to where you hit it from. You can take back on the line relief. That's what we call it now. You can take lateral relief in a red penalty area. Now remember, the 2 strokes is another exam record. The 2-stroke option is not available in a yellow penalty area. Put that into your memory bank. Now here, let's talk about stroke and distance relief. Simple. You're just going to go back. You've seen these diagrams many times. You're just going to go back and play where the original ball or another ball, and from where the previous stroke was made. And once again, this has always been the hardest thing for me to explain to my members, taking back on I don't know why that was, but, keep the point where the ball last crossed. I'm sure you've had the same difficulties. Player may drop the original ball or another ball in the relief area. And we've done a lot of this before. So there's the flagstick. There's where the ball last crossed. keeping that in the line, and now you've got a big reference point. What is it? That's 8 feet wide, because you got 96 inches there. And it goes straight back from the hole through the estimated point. We know that. Now the reference point. Once again, the reference point, we can't pound this enough. It's chosen by the player, and it's going to be whether by default, as you see in a minute, or by some kind of a reference point that they define by usually putting a T down there. It's got to be farther from the hole than the estimated point, with no limit in this situation to how far back you can go. We can always go as far back as we want. So if this player wanted to go back to, say they wanted to hit their favorite wedge, which they hit comfortably 70 yards, that's where they're going to go. And in choosing the point, you should indicate that point, as we said. Because if you don't, and we've talked about this, I think it was Alice who talked about this. You're gonna drop a ball without having chosen the point, which you can do in this situation. Because you're back on the line, you go far back as you want. If he drops the ball and hasn't chosen it, that place where it hits the ground there is going to be treated as the point on the line that's the same distance from the hole. That's going to be your new reference point by default. And once again, 1 club length on either side, so that makes it altogether 96 inches wide. Now here's the limits. Remember this: you can't be any nearer the hole. You know that. It may be in any area of the course. Remember that. There are times when you're taking relief, free relief, and it can't be in any part of the course. It has to be in the general area. For example, a cart path, something like that, embedded ball, things like that. That has to be in the general area. But here, could be in any part, and we'll discuss a little bit more about that too. Now, suppose we have an area of the course that's located within 1 club length of this reference point. Maybe you want to get it, and that's just the kind of situation you could be in. Now, this area that's in blue looks like a red penalty area. Maybe there's a place in there where you could play the ball. Well, you'd be permitted to drop it in there. Probably, I can't imagine a player doing that, but it could happen. But as it says here, the ball must come to rest in the relief area in the same area of the course that the ball first touched when dropped in the relief area. Okay? So if that rolls in there, it's going to be a second drop. Now, this is a local rule, model local rule. We have it on our hard card, which we're going to probably go. Tom's going to go over that because he's the hard card expert, being out there on the tour. We have this in our section on our hard card. And this is the rule that we discussed the other day about absolving a player from making a mistake here when he doesn't put a reference point down, so long as the ball, when played, is within 1 club length of where it first touched the ground when dropped. And this usually, as we mentioned, usually comes into play when the player wants to drop that ball right up in the front of that area, so eventually he'll get to place it. Okay. All right. So that's the reference point. That's going to get if the player played from that with that local rule in effect, that player will be absolved from penalty. Now, this is when a player is penalized when the improvement has no effect on the relief area. Now, this player played a shot over here. He took they took the back on the line relief, as you can see, and did something there to improve that relief area, but dropped the ball in the wrong way. Now, in that situation, they changed the area, decided to take different relief. And you get no penalty if you drop the ball in the right way in a different relief area, as long as the improvement did not also improve the relief area that the player played from. You remember the other day the player was taking relief from a cart path and was stomping down the ground. That player in that situation, that player could not get out of a penalty. Okay, now here's the lateral relief. This is only for a red penalty area, and I know at my course, I have put the local rule into effect, giving relief on either side of the point where the ball last crossed the margin, because I have a couple of penalty areas like that, which it would be unfair to restrict the player if he went on a certain side. So I put that local rule into effect, which you can do at your course if you so desire. Okay, so it's the edge of the penalty area. It's going to be 2 club lengths in this situation. And with these limits, once again, can't be nearer the hole. And once again, in this situation too, it can be in any area of the course except the same penalty area. Except the same penalty area. Remember that. But if more than one area of the course, and we discussed this just recently, is located within these 2 club lengths, the ball must come to rest in the same area of the course that the ball first touched when dropped in the relief area. Now these are committee procedures, okay. Model local rules. This is the one I mentioned. There's the point where the ball last crossed the margin. You can adopt this model local rule to give the player the ability to go on either side. Now, my problem is, on my course, my 3rd hole, if I required the player to drop on the left side, there's big trees there in his way, and it sort of double penalizes him, and we don't want to do that. So, did I press that hard enough? No, I guess I didn't. So there you have it. So that player now can do both, has an option there, an additional option by local rule. Now, this is the no-play zone from which relief must be taken, to which I alluded previously. And we're going to talk about when the ball itself is in the no-play zone, and also when the no-play zone interferes with the stance or swing for a ball in a penalty area. Now, when the ball is in this is cut and dry here. When the ball is in there, you got to take relief under either 17.1D or 17.2, which is when the options for a ball played from within the penalty area. We'll talk more in depth about that in a little while. Guys just have to take relief. Now, if the ball's in a penalty area and it's outside a no-play zone, which it could be but the no-play zone interferes with the intended stance or the intended swing. So the ball is in the penalty area, but it's outside the ball itself is outside the no-play zone. But the no-play zone interferes, let's say, with your follow-through, your take-back, your stance, whatever it is. You got a little option here. The player may take penalty relief, just as if the ball was in there. Immediately go outside, take his penalty relief, or you can take free relief in the penalty area. And I bet you can see what's coming. We're going to talk about that, and if this relief area, if it exists in the penalty area, you're going to be dropping that ball in the penalty area. And here's the same situation we've gone over so many times. The reference point. You got to get complete relief from that thing, and it's 1 club length. So you're getting free relief here, no penalty, because the ball's not there, but it interferes with part of your stance, swing. It must be in the same penalty area where the ball lies and must not be nearer the hole than the reference point. But once again, there's no free relief when it is. This is always the case when you're taking some crazy swing, like the David Frost wide stance that he took one time to try to get relief and didn't, or when it's clearly unreasonable because of something other than the no-play zone. For example, when the player is unable to make a stroke because there's a bush in there near it, or when the interference exists only because he takes a crazy stance or swing, you're not going to get that free relief. You're going to have to just take penalty area relief. Now, what about this penalty area when it's anywhere except in a penalty area, this no-play zone? That's going to be just simply under the simply if it once again if the ball is in there, or if that interferes with your stance or swing, in that case you're going to get free relief, because that's going to be like a beautification area, flower beds, things of that nature. Here we have the idea of the playing from a wrong place, and it's going to tell you that. And you got to remember this sometimes when you're taking that test, because maybe we're talking about a penalty area, and then a player plays from a wrong place somehow, in addition to the penalty area penalty, and they're going to ask you how many total penalty strokes are there going to be. And so many times I said 2, just thinking about the wrong place, but I forgot the penalty area penalty, and that's what that is referring to. So let's talk about this one. Another one. Which of the following is false? It is virtually certain that a player's ball is in a penalty area when the player puts another ball in play and taking relief under Rule 17. The original ball is no longer in play and must not be played even if found within 3 minutes. And do we have, he had virtual certainty there. Let's remember that. The reference point used to determine the player's relief area for back on the line relief is chosen. The reference points used for the stroke and distance and lateral relief options are not chosen by the player, but established by Rule 17. Okay, think about that one. If a player's relief area is partially in the general area and partially in a bunker, if the player drops in the right way with the ball first landing in the general area and then it rolls and comes to rest in the part of the relief area in the bunker, the player's ball is correctly put back in play. If a player's ball lies in a no-play zone in a penalty area, the player must take penalty relief outside the penalty area. Taking relief inside the same penalty area is where the ball lies in it without penalty, where there is no interference from the no-play zone, is not an option. Okay, so what do we think? Erudite rules people. C is the false one. Because, as we said, if there's 2 areas of the course, got to stay in the area where it first struck on the drop. Any questions? Matthew?
No, sir.
All right. All right. Now, this is 17-2. This used to be called 26-2. This was always a tough one. But I think, and you know, once again, as we're going through this, there's a lot of words. If somehow or other you get a little bit confused just by the presentation or something I said, just keep reading it. It will sink in after a while. That's how you learn the rules. Believe me, it'll sink in. Trust me. Okay, we're going to talk about the ball played from the penalty area, and it comes to rest. It doesn't get out. It's in the same or another penalty area. And when the ball played from the penalty area, it gets out, but it's lost, out of bounds, or unplayable. Okay. Now, what does it say? It says if it's played from the penalty area and then it comes to rest in the same penalty area or another penalty area, the player, once again, may go up and play it. That's not a problem. You can always play the ball as it lies. Or, for 1 penalty stroke, you hit your tee shot into a penalty area, you take a stroke at it, the ball doesn't get out. Now the theory here is you don't have a reference point because the ball that on your last stroke never crossed the margins of a penalty area. So you can take 1 penalty stroke and have all your normal relief options. Or you can take stroke and distance. So once again, you may play. This is going to show you all the things you can do here. This makes it very clear, and I give David Stabler very great credit, who writes these things, credit for this. So, player has played his shot. See that player A there? He played that from point A, went to point B, didn't get out. So he can go play the ball as it lies. Yes. Or for 1 penalty stroke, he can immediately get out of there and have basically what we're saying here. To have he can take stroke and distance relief, obviously stroke and distance, go back where point A, or immediately come out and have all the original options that he had. All those things. All right, stroke and distance here. Back on the line. Lateral. There it is. Or play from the last stroke outside the pen. That was his tee shot. Now, here we have a little closer perspective here. So now, if the player decides not to come directly out after he plays that, he can take the stroke and distance relief by dropping a ball where he played the previous stroke from. Obviously, these are places where you can pretty much play a shot. But if he decides not to play the drop ball from where it came to rest, maybe that ball now goes into a place where there's deeper water or within this area here. Now he can decide not to play the drop ball from where it came to rest for whatever reason. He doesn't like it. Doesn't like the way it looks, the lie. He may take further relief outside the penalty area under 17. Okay. And what does he take? He gets one more penalty stroke for a total of 2. So he's dropped. He doesn't like where it is. And now he's going to take these other options for an additional penalty stroke, but he's got all the other options. Okay? No matter what happens, he's not going to get more than a two-stroke penalty in these situations. And there you have the lines pointing to that. Now we're going to get into one more penalty stroke. And the explanation of it is, yes, you got the stroke and distance because you took that drop. You thought you could you thought that would work for you. We're going to have a nice video about it. And then you got one more because you didn't like that area and you decided to come out. Okay. Now, suppose you do this. You play from inside the penalty area and the ball goes out of bounds. Well, now you got a situation here where it's going to be a little different, but not terribly different. Or you maybe your ball's unplayable for some reason, and you decide to take stroke and distance relief. I mean, that's usually out of bounds. You're going to have to do that, but unplayable ball, probably I can't think of an option, but you have the option, because you can take stroke and distance under the unplayable ball rule. So let's suppose you did that. Now, because the original ball is either out of bounds or lost or unplayable outside the penalty area. So now, what can you do? If the player takes stroke and distance relief by dropping a ball in the penalty area, and then once again doesn't like it, decides not to play the drop ball from where it came to rest, he can take further relief outside the penalty area. Remember, this ball has gone into a place where there's another penalty involved. And if he decides to do that, he gets one more penalty stroke for a total of 2 penalty strokes. 1 stroke for taking stroke and distance relief, which in that case he had to do, out of bounds, lost, unplayable, or 1 stroke for taking relief, and the other 1 stroke for taking the relief from outside the penalty area, the penalty relief. Or, as you'll see in a minute here, the player can forget about dropping it again in there. He may directly take such relief outside the penalty area, but he still gets a total penalty of 2 strokes. Now, if you read it over enough, even I can understand this after this. When I first attacked 26-2, it was baffling and befuddling. I always thought. So now watch our situation. That's an interesting bunker wall. Or penalty area. That's a penalty area wall, not a bunker wall. So the ball's out of bounds. Yeah, he had to walk all the way up there to figure that out. So now what he's going to do here, he's going to he's not going to drop that ball back in the penalty area. He's going to correctly take that direct relief by dropping that ball there for the 2 penalty strokes. This means he's going to be playing in this case, his 6th stroke. And where is this going to go? He is looking at a big number here. And this, again, reiterates that when you play a ball from a wrong place, which sometimes can happen in these situations, maybe you took lateral relief and you thought it was 3 club lengths, and nobody told you about it. So now you play. Now you play from a wrong place, not a serious breach. You're still going to get the 2, but you're going to get that 1-stroke penalty for the penalty area breach. Any questions on that one? 17-2. Once again, keep reading it. These diagrams are available in the big book, even in the small book, I think, and you will come to know what it's all about. We had a situation like this a while back out at where the devil was it? It was at trying to think now. It wasn't. It was at Bend, Oregon. We were doing it. I think it was a senior out there. It was a tournament out there, and we had this dog leg left. And the first problem we had was you couldn't tell off the tee whether the player had cleared the lateral hazard, whether the ball had cleared and bounced forward or cleared and bounced back. You couldn't tell, so we had to station a rules official there. And then I was stationed down at the other end where a lot of players were attempting to play from this, and at that time it was called a lateral hazard. Now it'd be a red penalty area. A lot of players were attempting to play from there, and we had to instruct a lot of players on in those days 26-2, but it's much simpler now, and I think you all know it. Okay, now this is simple. When a ball is in a penalty area, there's no relief for interference by abnormal course conditions, an embedded ball, or an unplayable ball, because you can't declare your ball unplayable in a hazard. You're just going to have to proceed as it tells you now. Your only option here is to proceed under the penalty area rule. I think I could be mistaken when I say this, but the only thing that you're going to get relief from in a penalty area is a movable obstruction, something like a Coke bottle. Tom, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I can't think of another thing that you could get relief from, and it sort of might make it simpler to remember. But you don't get relief from any of these things.
A dangerous animal condition.
Okay, danger. I said all animals to me. All animals to me they don't seem dangerous to me. But okay, that's a good. Thank you, Tom. Tell you, he's the godfather of rules. Okay, so he's got to take penalty. You have to take penalty relief. Oh, here it is. So there's the second thing. Yeah, I guess that's a dangerous animal. So you can either take free relief in the penalty area in this situation, or penalty relief, just go right outside the pen. I think, unless you can get pretty far away from that thing, I'd take the stroke rather than dying. Any questions there?
No, sir.
All right. Okay, we go to Rule 19. Okay, I think we're doing okay here. Unplayable ball. Remember this. Player is the sole judge. You can decide to take unplayable ball relief anywhere except, as we just said, a penalty area. The relief options for the unplayable ball in the general area or on the putting green. Unplayable ball on the putting green? I don't know, I guess so. Or relief options for the unplayable ball in a bunker. Okay, these are, as we just said, what parts of the course? The three unplayable ball, the three unplayable ball, 1 penalty stroke relief options. There's going to be another one. The limits on some of those procedures, when it's in a bunker, the extra 2-stroke penalty, this is new, relief option when a ball is in the bunker. You can do this. There's our question. We'll come back to it. Now, this covers the relief options that you have. The player can. Is that Scott Kane? Tom, does that look like Scott Kane?
I don't think that's him.
All right.
It might be his twin brother or a cousin, but that's not him.
He's skinny like he is. You can choose which option, normally with 1 penalty stroke, to get out of this thing, and anywhere on the course except in a penalty area. Okay. As this is more repetition, you can do it the unplayable ball in the general area putting green, and it tells you the relief options. Once again, who may decide? And it tells you who may decide by taking penalty relief, and it tells you player must as the sole judge here. It's allowed anywhere on the course except in a penalty area. A lot of repetition. They thought that was so important. Keep a player from doing that, because then you get yourself into some real penalty situations. If you think you can take an unplayable lie in a penalty area. So if the ball's unplayable in a penalty area, once again, repetition, your only option is to proceed under Rule 17. Okay, now you got 19-2A, stroke and distance, 2B, back on the line relief, and C, the lateral relief. In each case, you add a penalty stroke. We're going to delve into that. Okay, stroke and distance relief. Now you can take stroke and distance relief, pay attention to this, even if the original ball has not been found or identified. You hit this thing, we had this presentation where Lefty and Frank Licklider were hit their tee shots into bad country. Is the one where Phil decided this, don't look for that, and the guy looked for it. They had to come back and hit another ball. They had played provisional balls, but they couldn't play them because they found their original ball. So what could have happened there? That when the player hits this thing, and he could either have, when he put another ball in play, said nothing. If you say nothing, then that's going to be your ball in play, not your provisional ball. Or you can say, I'm hereby declaring that ball. I'm taking the stroke and distance relief, and I'm declaring my ball unplayable. And then, no matter if someone found it, it wouldn't make any difference. But just came in there. But if you're going to take these other relief options, well, then you have to know where the ball is, don't you? How are you going to take back on the line relief if you don't know where the ball is? Or lateral relief. So you have to know the spot of the original ball. In other words, you got to find your ball. Once again, this is a bit of repetition. We're taking stroke and distance. We won't do too much time on that. Back on the line relief. Drop the original ball or another ball. And this is just like a penalty area, back on the line relief. It's the same thing. No limit. Or, there's the back on the line relief. Tells you, I won't belabor that, because you know what it is. Once again, the player should indicate the point by using an object. Can't stress that with your members too. And as Tom says, try to put that local rule on your rule sheet to absolve the player from getting into a problem when you go out there. Where'd you drop it? You didn't put something down? Okay, now you don't have to penalize him. Could be the president of the club. Okay. And that's what it tells you right there. And once again, the size of the relief area is the same thing. Not near the hole. Once again, any area of the course. And it tells you this, but if more than one area of the course is located, ball has to come to rest in the relief area in the same area that the ball first touched. I'm sure you folks are going to know this one, inside that part of it, inside and out. Now, if you take the lateral relief, and remember, it's from the point where the unplayable ball lies, not the edge of whatever you're trying to get out of, not the edge of the bush. My members make that mistake all the time. It's the spot of the original ball. 2 club lengths. You got that area out there in any direction. But these limits must be not near the hole, must be in the area of the same area in the course. I won't belabor this. We've gone over this many times. Okay. Now, this is interesting. Suppose this, see that ball up there in the tree? Well, when a player's ball lies above the ground, such as in a bush or a tree, the player may take lateral relief by using the point on the ground directly below the spot as his or her reference point. So you've identified this ball as yours, either through your binoculars or possibly now through the evidence of a spectator. It's definitely your ball. You decide, well, I'm going to declare it unplayable. Well, now your reference point is a spot on the ground directly below where the ball is in the tree. So there it is. There's your spot. You're going to measure your reference point. That's your reference point. You're going to get your relief area. I'll say it again. And in some cases, this might allow a ball to be dropped on the putting green. There's a couple of times when you can drop a ball on the putting green. Okay? Rather than place it, because most of the time when anything has to do with the putting green, you're usually placing it. In this case, you're dropping it. Once again, general penalty for playing from the wrong place, but don't forget to add that penalty stroke for either unplayable ball or penalty. Now, if a player takes unplayable relief but in a wrong place, looking for false again, and plays the ball, the penalty is 3 strokes. 1 for taking unplayable relief, and 2 more for playing from a wrong place. Like that. If a serious breach of playing from a wrong place is involved in taking Rule 19.2, that's unplayable ball, the player must correct that error by playing the original ball or another ball from the correct place. Serious breach. It's where a player gets an unfair advantage. If a player plays from a wrong place, not a serious breach when taking Rule 19.2 relief, the player must play out the hole with the ball played from the wrong place. And I can't read the rest of this. It says the stroke made from the wrong place after my computer won't let me go down there to see it. Can you read that, Tom? The stroke made from the wrong place after incorrectly taking Rule 19.2 relief.
No, I can't. Are you able? You can't scroll that up?
No, I can't. Not on this stupid computer. I'm sorry about that. But let's figure it out. We'll figure it out. And there was your answer. And I can't. I don't know if anyone can see that one. But there's your false. Well, we know the other 3 are true. Player plays from a wrong place, not a serious breach. The player must play out the hole with the ball played from the wrong place. You play from a wrong place, and it is somebody says, "Hey, you played from 3 strokes, you are 3 club lengths from that when you took that lateral relief." And geez, I wish I had been able to come over and tell you that before you hit the shot, because then you could have corrected your error, but you didn't. So it's not a serious breach. You didn't gain anything by it. So just play out the hole. Don't have to correct that. And the serious breach you do. Remember, if you have a serious breach and you're playing maybe 2 balls, you're going to have to you're going to have to tell the committee about it or be disqualified. Okay, we go on. Any questions about that one?
There's been none submitted, no.
Okay, very good, thank you. 19.3. Okay, now we're talking about unplayable ball in the bunker. You can take 1 penalty stroke. This is and any of the options. You can take stroke and distance. In other words, where you hit it from. 1 penalty stroke. Take back on the line relief in the bunker. 1 penalty stroke, player may take lateral relief, but it's got to be in the bunker if you use those 2 options. If it's stroke and distance, well, then you can come out of the bunker if that's where you played it. Unless you had played the previous stroke in the bunker, then you ain't getting out. Except that the ball must be dropped and come to rest in the relief area in the bunker if you take the back on the line relief or the lateral relief. Okay? Now, we have a new option this year. I think this is great for new players, or maybe you're a particularly lousy bunker player, or it could be any reason. As an extra relief option, when a player's ball is in a bunker, for a total penalty of 2 penalty strokes, the player may take back on the line relief outside the bunker under Rule 19.2b for 2 penalty strokes. So it's 1 under the regular rule, and it's 2 under this special rule, 19.3b. There's that thing we always have, playing from a wrong place. Okay? Any questions about 19.3? That new rule. Wonderful. Okay, if you want to take a little break, because as stupid as I am with this computer, it's going to take me a minute to get to Rule 18. Let's see. Can you tell me an easier way to get to Rule 18? No, this is on my download. Matt, or do I have to just go do it the long way?
I think you'll have to go to your folder where it's located.
Okay, thank you. Very good.
Or if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else.
Well, don't forget, wherever you go, that's where you are. That's why we're on top. That's why we're on top here with these things, Tom. Okay.
I talked to Brian, and we're gonna do the hard card today if we have time. I'm sure we will, because you're just. I've not seen a more efficient presentation I've seen today.
Yeah, we're just flying through it, ain't we? Boy, I'll tell you what, though, I do love it. Okay, now I've got to go to my. Wait a minute, I don't want to do anything wrong here. I have to go to my.
Back to your downloads folder there.
Back to my downloads, okay, which is over here. Documents. No, this one I actually. I don't know if I have. Do I have the 2020 thing on the downloads? I don't know if I do. Yeah, well, maybe let's see if I do. Let's go with if I go to search and put 2020.
Top left, downloads. Top left, where it says downloads, not documents, downloads.
You know, this one has come through that way. I think this is it here, 2020. Let's see.
I don't think so.
Yeah, rules presentation. I think it is.
That's a zip file.
Well, let me see. Well, I'm there. This is Rule 18. See, Rule 17, when I go to 17, who cares when I go to Rule 17? Yeah, I'm in the right place.
There you go. Yep.
How about that? Oh, open it up. Oh, boy. I feel like a computer whiz now. Just call me Laptop Lewis. Okay. Now we go to slideshow. Talk my way through it. That's what I do when I'm giving a ruling. And this is Rule 18. Here we go. Purpose, relief under the penalty of stroke and distance. Allowed anytime. Stroke and distance, remember it. Anytime you can take stroke and distance. Okay. Then you got lost or out of bounds. You got to take stroke and distance. You don't have any other options there. And now we're going to talk about the provisional ball, or my members call it the provincial, very appropriate up here, or the prudential. Okay. So now how do we play under stroke and distance? I think we know a lot of these things, but we're going to go over them. Sometimes it's required, sometimes it's the player's choice. When is it when the ball is out of bounds? How to play the provisional, and even when it's not permitted. When a provisional ball must be abandoned and play continued with the original ball or a substituted ball. When the provisional ball becomes the ball in play, you got to know when it becomes the ball in play. And the original must be abandoned, and the play of a provisional ball for a provisional. This puts me in mind, we were up at Turning Stone And those of you who have played up there, I think we were doing what we called then the players, the PNC. We were up there doing it, and we were using both golf courses. And on the golf course, on the main golf course, which was pretty much wide open, play was moving great. But over on the other one, every fairway was lined with bulrushes and weeds and leaves and everything, and weeds. And we had one player there who had 5 provisional balls, had to hit 5 provisional balls off the tee. That was really a joy, and they were taking about an hour and a half longer to play that round. When a player can choose between playing a provisional ball and the original substitute. Now we're going to cover how you take relief. Okay, when a ball's lost outside a penalty area, you have to you got to do that with the folks that you're playing with. Ball rattles around in a penalty area, and could be in it, could be out. That's okay. That's okay. It could be lost outside a penalty area. You can't take relief you cannot hit a provisional ball for a ball you think is in a penalty area unless there's a special local rule, which I have not seen in effect anywhere, but it could be used in the appendix that's in play. And what this is stating here, we have the required progression of playing from tee to green. Just keep hitting the ball. Well, that's broken when you hit the thing out of bounds. So now you have to go back and put another ball in play. Save time. Now we also do it to save time when it may have gone out of bounds, or maybe you lost outside a penalty area. Here's our question, which we'll come back to. Once again, to reiterate, at any time the player may take stroke and distance by adding a penalty stroke and playing the original ball or another ball, and you've seen this diagram ad nauseum. Now, the player always has this option. Now, here's a player, he's in ground under repair. He can either take the ground under repair options, or he can take stroke and distance. And you can see where would he be dropping this ball under the ground under repair option. So the rule may require the player to take relief in a certain way, but he can always take the stroke and distance option. Okay. Now, once he puts this ball in play, and it's correct, he's proceeded correctly, the original ball is no longer in play. There's situations where a ball is put in play like this, where you're proceeding under an inapplicable rule, and it's a little bit different, but we won't delve into that right now. Now, this is true once you put the thing in play, once it leaves your hand, and then it's then found on the course before the end of the 3-minute search time. Okay. But this does not apply to a ball to be played from where the previous stroke was made when the player announces that he or she is playing a provisional ball, which you'll see in a minute. Is playing a second ball, which you do when you're in doubt as to your rule, as to your rights under the rules. 20-1C3. That's one rule I know. 20-1C3. You got to know how to do it. You must know how to do that. Any questions there? Okay, we proceed. Ball lost or out of bounds, stroke and distance. When it's lost or out of bounds, what do? The ball's lost or out of bounds. It's not found in 3 minutes. It's lost if it's not found in 3 minutes after the player or his or her caddy begins to search for it. You can tell your caddy, don't go up there, don't start searching for you until we get there. Remember, it says the player or his or her caddy. Your father-in-law, your brother-in-law, your girlfriend, whatever it happens to be, they search, and it's a different story. The player or the caddy. That's when the timing comes. And if it's found in that time, but it's uncertain whether it's the player's ball, the player must promptly attempt to identify it. I think this might be your ball, that fellow says. Gotta go and try and identify it. You're allowed to, suppose you're on the other side of the golf course, and hey, wait, this might be your ball. You're allowed a reasonable time to get there, even if this happens after the 3-minute search time has ended. So they found some ball, you go over there, the 3-minute search has ended, and you identify it as yours, it's okay. Not yours, well, then it's lost, obviously. Okay, we got that. And there it is. Now, when is a ball out of bounds? It's amazing. I get a lot of questions about this, even from golf professionals. It's out of bounds when all of it is outside the boundary edge of the course. Now, this is a very good diagram. This shows you with the check marks. See, any part of the ball is in bounds, that ball is in bounds. There you have stakes, inside line at ground level, and then there you have a line, and the line itself is out of bounds. So the X and X there, but that slight part of the ball, even if it's by a coat of paint, even if you have to get down on your stomach to look at it, that ball there, that green ball is in bounds. Okay? All right. Or it's above the boundary edge, maybe in a tree, because we know that the boundary extends upward, just like a water hazard. Okay, now a player may stand out of bounds, which this player is doing, to play a ball on the course. Okay. Now, what do? You got to take stroke and distance. You got to add a penalty stroke. Now, we've been over this a lot of times, and play from where the previous stroke was made. Okay. Now, how about these situations? Pay attention to this one. And when the ball is lost or out of bounds, you have an exception here. You can play this under these rules. You may substitute another ball under other rules when it is known or virtually certain what happened to the ball. And this is going to come into play on the provisional ball, which you'll see shortly. Here we have a ball that's been taken away by that, looks like a boxer there. And then here's a ball that went into the outhouse. And then they're supposed to have a half moon, an outhouse, I think. And what do we have here? Ball is it has gone into a penalty area, and then here's a ball that's been played. Ed Horde continues to play David's ball. He can't seem to stop him from playing that wrong ball. Instead of taking stroke and distance relief, the player may substitute another ball as allowed for in that rule that applies when it's known or virtually certain. I'm pounding that in there, when it's known or virtually certain that it came to rest on the course and was moved by an outside agency. I should say an outside influence. Oh, I owe $1. Outside influence. Played as a wrong ball by another player. It is in a movable obstruction, which is what that trash can is. That's movable. Or an abnormal course condition. Or is in a penalty area. Okay. Now, suppose the ball is deliberately deflected or stopped by any person. Tom and I were talking about this one. We have the virtual certainty for came to rest on the course and was moved by an outside influence. Played as a wrong ball by another player. Came to rest on the course in or on a movable obstruction or an abnormal course condition. Is in a penalty area or is deliberately deflected or stopped. Okay. Don't forget, you could have an additional penalty on some of these. Now let's go with this one. After playing from the teeing area, no matter where the player's ball is on course, she is not always allowed to play her ball as it lies, but can always play under stroke and distance. We're looking for the false one here. A player drops a ball in the general area after saying she is going to play under stroke and distance. If her original ball is found before the end of her 3-minute search time, she can abandon the dropped ball and play the original. Remember, we're looking for the false one here. And she's saying she's going to play under stroke and distance. Okay, if the ball is found with less than 10 seconds remaining on the player's search time, and she is not near where the ball is found, she is allowed a reasonable time to get to the ball to promptly identify it, even if this happened after the 3-minute search time has ended. If a player plays under stroke and distance and from a wrong place, the penalty in match play is loss of hole and in stroke play is 3 penalty strokes. So let's take our informed guess as to what this might be. And what is it, gang? It's B. Now, this player did not say, I'm going to play a provisional ball, which we'll see in a little while. This player said, no, I'm going to play under stroke and distance. And as we said, once she drops this ball, leaves her hand, that original ball is found. You can't play it. It now becomes a wrong ball. Okay, 18-2. Any questions?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, here's the provisional ball. When are you allowed to play a provisional ball? Well, we discussed that. You're announcing playing a provisional ball, or you're playing a provisional ball until it becomes the ball in play. You know, maybe you have a little problem that during the day, and the ball is you're dribbling it off the tee. You hit your first one way out there, like 250, but then you're in doubt as to where it might be, and the next one you dribble off the tee, and you dribble the next one, the next one. You play 11 shots till the time you get to where the original ball is likely to be. Well, if you find your original ball, you won't be hitting your 12th stroke. You'll be hitting your second stroke. And that's what you can hope for. Okay, here we go. Here's our question. We'll delay for that. Now, another ball, provisional ball, is another ball played in case the ball just played by the player may be out of bounds or lost outside a penalty area. And anytime you can play a provisional ball to save time, you should do it. And you have to be able to announce it correctly. And remember, a provisional ball is not the player's ball in play unless it subsequently becomes the ball in play under the rule. You can figure out, you can predict now what's going to happen, telling you how that'll happen. Now, it's once again, this fellow person here, I can't tell, it looks like a young lady, she's going to be playing this ball. If it might be lost or out of bounds, or to save time, she's going to do it. And she said, I'm playing a provisional. That's okay. We'll see what you have to say to make it a provisional. And now this is something that when these new rules first came out, you know, I was teaching my members and actually at the section, we were talking about the changes that came in, and this really didn't find its way into the obvious changes that came in. When now you can play a provisional ball after you've gone forward to search for it, which is the case because the rule of the provisional ball doesn't tell you that you can't do it. So we know the way we used to have to do it. You had to do it immediately. You had to announce it before you went forward to look, but now you can do it. So keep this in mind. If the player is able to return to the spot of his or her previous stroke and play a provisional ball before the 3-minute search time has ended, the player is allowed to do so. And I hasten to say that there may be somebody listening to this now that did not realize that. So it's important. I know it took a long time for me to get it in my head. Okay, so the other thing is, the examples of where the provisional ball may be played is the original ball might be in a penalty area, but it might also be lost outside the penalty area. You can't say, I think my ball is in a penalty area, so I'm going to play a provisional ball. No, that's going to then, if you do that, that's going to be your ball in play under stroke and distance. But if there's a chance that it could be either in the penalty area or lost somewhere else, then you're okay to go with the provisional ball. Now, unfortunately, though, if the player is aware that the only place the original ball could be lost is in a penalty area, you can't really, now you're going to have a problem. This player sees this thing, that's going to be a red penalty area, I think, and you can't play the provisional ball in that case. It's obvious that ball is going to be, you can't find it, it's going to be in a penalty. You can't play the provisional. But if you do, it's going to be your ball in play under stroke and distance. as it's set. So, because that player is going to lie 3 on the putting green. Okay, once again, this is a little reiteration. Now, once you play a provisional, and this is another one to pay close attention to. This is the one I mentioned up at the Turning Stone. Once the player has played the provisional ball, then another provisional ball is going to have the same relationship to the first provisional ball as the first one has to the original ball. Now, stay with us on this one. Here's a little scenario. For example, a player plays a provisional ball, ball 2, believing that his or her tee shot, ball 1, might be lost or out of bounds. That's fine. The provisional ball is struck in the same direction as the original ball, and without any announcement, remember, he or she plays another ball, ball 3 from the tee. That ball 3, comes to rest in the fairway. Now, if the original ball is not lost or out of bounds, we're fine here. We have 2 other balls we played. The player must continue to play with the original ball because you found it, but without penalty, since it was played without any. But the ball 3, which was played for a provisional ball, but there was no announcement. Therefore, the third ball was a ball substituted for the provisional ball, regardless of the provisional ball's location. Player has now taken 5 strokes, including penalty strokes, with the third ball played from the tee. Okay. Any questions about that? All right, I'll go on. Now you have to announce it. What do you have to say? You got to announce it. Even now, you can go forward, search for a minute. I'm going to play a provisional ball. You can't say I'm going to reload. There's certain things you can't say. Not enough for a player to say that he or she is playing another ball or playing again. Player must use the word provisional, or otherwise clearly indicate that he or she is playing the ball provisionally. You could say Rule 18.3. Most players will say, well, here's things that these clearly indicate it. You see those. These other ones do not clearly indicate it. I'm going to reload. I'm going to play another. Okay. Up here, I'm playing in Hazleton. It would be, I think I'm going to play a Prudential. Okay. Actually, that'd be okay in Hazleton. All right. Now, if you don't clearly announce it, and you hit it, it's your ball in play under penalty of stroke and distance. Now, you can continue to play with it until you come to the point where your provisional ball is likely to be. It's going to be the ball in play as long as I should say it won't be the ball in play, your provisional, as long as you don't play it from a spot that's the same distance or farther from the hole than where the original ball. It's a real good diagram here. So you think you normally hit a ball 300 yards. You slice it off somehow, and now you figure, well, it's 275. Well, 275 is probably going to be your situation there, where your original ball is likely to be. And that's what, now we're going to make this determination, okay? Yeah, it doesn't matter how many times you play the provisional ball to reach this point. Use the spot where the player estimates his or her original ball to be when determining whether the provisional ball has been played from nearer the hole. Because if it's played from nearer the hole, like that place there, it's now going to be the ball in play. Okay. Now, it stops being a provisional ball when it becomes the ball in play. And how does that happen? When it's abandoned on a provisional ball, what might be abandoned, 18.3c, or and therefore it becomes a wrong ball. okay? When the original ball is lost anywhere on the course, except in a penalty area, or is out of bounds. Now remember that, except in a penalty area. When the provisional ball is played from a spot nearer the hole than where the original ball is estimated to be. In those cases, the provisional ball becomes the player's ball in play. Anywhere except in a penalty area when provisional ball is played from a spot nearer the hole. Okay. When it's lost anywhere on the course, except in a penalty area or out of bounds, the original ball is no longer in play and is now a wrong ball, and don't play it. Or when it's played from a spot nearer the hole than where the original ball is estimated to be, the original ball is no longer in play, then it's the wrong ball, so don't play it. If the player plays a provisional ball into the same general location, now pay attention to this one, it's a good one, as the original ball, and is unable to identify which ball is which. And you have two little sub-scenarios here. If only one of the balls is found, are you with me on this one? I played two Titleist 8s and into the same general area, and I can't determine which one is which. If only one of the balls is found, we got a situation. If both balls are found, we got a situation. That's why you should always put that mark on your ball. If only one of the balls is found on the course, that ball is going to be treated as the provisional ball, which is now in play. Okay? And the other ball is treated as lost and must not be played. Okay? You choose. Okay, if both balls are found on the course, I should say, the player must choose one of the balls to be treated as the provisional ball, which is now in play, and the other is treated as lost and must not be played. Now I have an exception here. Player may substitute another ball under another rule. This is something a lot of people don't know about. Another exam record. When it's known or virtually certain what happened to the ball. There are some scenarios we talked about before when we haven't found the ball, but it's known or virtually certain that the ball, once again, has been moved by an outside influence, that dog. There it is in the outhouse. That's a normal course condition. Was deliberately deflected or stopped by any person. Now watch this one here. Oh boy. What are they doing? Okay. Was deliberately, that's what that says there, deliberately or stopped by any person. Now you may substitute another ball for the original in those situations, or you can play your provisional under stroke and distance. So we know something's happened to our ball there. We can proceed under those rules, or in this case, we can play the provisional ball under stroke and distance. We have a choice, and we don't often get the choice. Now, when the provisional ball has to be abandoned, when a provisional ball has not yet become the ball in play, got to be abandoned in these two cases. When the original ball, when you find your original ball on the course outside a penalty area before 3 minutes are up, or when the original ball is found in a penalty area or is known or virtually certain to be in a penalty area. When your original ball is, I'll say it again a million times, it's in the penalty area, at that point you can't play the provisional. You have to deal with the penalty area situation. Okay? Player must play now when the original ball is found on the course, then you play the original ball as it lies. But when it's found in a penalty area, you got to either play the original ball as it lies, if you know, under the penalty area situation, or take penalty area relief. In other words, you go down to the penalty area and play it, the original ball. Okay, but the provisional had to be abandoned. It tells you here that it must not make any more stroke for the provisional ball, which is now a wrong ball. If you play it, you got a real problem. You're gonna have to correct it. And all strokes for that provisional ball before it was abandoned don't count. unless we won't get into that. There's certain things you give advice while you're playing a provisional, or you do certain things, you'll get a penalty. Okay. Penalty for playing. Here we are, 18-3. The wrong place penalty. Here's that famous little pyramid thing that leads up to that. You're gonna don't forget the original penalty. Here's our question. Okay. Which of the following second balls, that's when you're in doubt, announced as a provisional ball, which of the following second balls announced as a provisional ball by the player and then played is in play under stroke and distance and not a provisional ball? So this is a second ball, but you're saying it's a provisional. You've announced it as a provisional. So which one of these is not a provisional? A second ball played because the player thought her original ball might not be found either in the general area or in an adjacent penalty area. Is that going to be a provisional ball? Let's think about that. B, a second ball played because the player hit her original ball into a wooded area she thought was part of the general area, but when she reached the area to search, discovered it was marked as a penalty area. A second ball played because the player knows if she doesn't find her original ball, it will be in a penalty area, and if not in the penalty area, she knows her ball will be found in the fairway beyond the penalty area. Think about that one. Or a second ball played after the player and others had started to look for her original ball, but before the 3-minute search time to find it had expired. A lot of words. Which one do you think is not a provisional ball? And here we go. And it's C. Because what did she do? She played a second ball because she thought the ball might be in a penalty area. Okay. So that we know we can't do. Any questions on Rule 18.3?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, gentlemen and ladies, that concludes my presentation for today. And it was a pleasure to do it. Do we have any, can anyone think of any kind of further?
Yeah, one question just came in from Graham Denler.
Oh,
Going back to lost ball or out of bounds, do you have a sense if clubs are using the local rule?
Well, I think clubs, like anybody anywhere else, I think clubs who are very busy, I think it would be a good thing for clubs who have, well, like the fellow was talking about on Tuesday, he's got 250 rounds a day. I don't have in my course, I don't do 250 rounds in a month. But if a situation like that, I think putting that local rule, the 2-stroke penalty, dropping the ball in bounds where you think you lost your ball, went out of bounds, I thought it would be great. But you certainly are not going to see it in any kind of high-level competition. What do you think about that, Tom?
Yeah, I think that again, it's up to each individual club. Now, personally, this is just my gut. I'm not a fan of it because it's very convoluted. That you're going to let somebody drop it on the fairway, estimate where it went out of bounds or where it was. Out of bounds, you can kind of, maybe where it went out. But for a ball that's lost in a wooded area, now all of a sudden you're able to take it to the fairway and take 2 penalty strokes. I get the rationale. I would rather educate people on playing provisionals, number one. In a match play setting, usually if the ball's lost, they're going to lose the hole anyway. So I don't know. I think it's a very convoluted local rule. And, I think most people are just going to drop a ball, play in with the new equitable stroke control. Now, your was it max net double bogey for your or net max double bogey for posting, all that stuff. I think all that takes care of itself. I just think, what's to say someone would hit a they had to go back and play again, that they're going to hit that ball in the fairway. Now they get to drop it on the fairway. And it just, I don't know. It just, to me, I'm not a fan of it, but if people want to use it, have at it.
I have to say the same thing. I don't like it because you got a guy hits the ball 300 yards, and he hits one that just kind of tails off on a narrow fairway, and now he toward the boundary, and now he hits another one, his second shot. Well, of course, if he plays a provisional, he can't use that, can he? No, he can't. So now, all right, so he doesn't hit the provisional. I'm sorry, he walks. That's why I don't like the rule. He walks down to look for his ball. And he says, well, 300 yards, this is where it might have gone. So now he's got a ball some 300 yards down the middle of the fairway with a 2-stroke penalty, albeit he's hitting 4. But it's like hitting a perfect provisional ball. I don't like it. So it'll never be the case. I'll never be using it. I know we'll never use it at a high level of a competition. I'd be curious, is anybody using it within the sound of my voice at their club?
Hey, Clarky, I use it in the Winter League.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well, it's not a bad idea there because, some of the courses you're playing down there, I'm talking about like Twisted Dune or some of those crazy places down there that have, when I say crazy, I mean, they got a lot of that are right and left. Yeah, I could see that would make sense, especially when it's cold and windy. That's a good.
It also took our average time to play around under 4 hours.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm glad to hear that. That's an option I hadn't thought.
Clark, Steve just asked if you can explain how to treat the example of a player hitting a ball off the tee towards a penalty area, but declaring it may be lost outside the penalty area, so he is going to play a provisional.
Okay.
He then goes down, looks, and does not find the ball, and then declares that he is now virtually certain that the ball must be in the penalty area and wants to proceed under lateral relief from the hazard.
Well, if he's done that, and you mean by walking down that he's in doubt now, and he properly plays the provisional ball, because you can do that in that situation. And now he goes down, and for some reason he no longer has doubt that his ball is in. He knows that his ball is in there. Is that what we're saying?
I think so. Steve, if you want to unmute yourself and clarify, that's perfectly all right.
Yeah. Well, let's think about it. He didn't do anything wrong by playing the provisional ball, because his ball might have been lost outside the penalty area. So now he goes down there, and let's suppose he can see his ball in the hazard. Another $1. He can see his ball in the penalty area. Well, now that ball is going to become the ball in play, and that provisional ball is out of play. As we said, once we know our original ball is, he'd either find it on the golf course or is in the penalty area, then he's going to have to proceed with the original ball, either play it as it lies or proceed under the penalty area rule. Does that answer your question, Steve?
Mark, I think he's referring to virtual certainty.
Yeah. Okay. So it's the same thing. He's doubtful on the tee, which is okay. I'm just trying to think this thing through. So now he goes down there, and for whatever it maybe there are 5 spectators that are down there. Oh yeah, we saw your ball. We don't know why you hit that provisional ball, but you're 300 yards away. You couldn't see down here. But we saw the ball, and it went into the hazard, another $1. It went into the penalty area. So this is starting to cost me money. He's got virtual certainty now. So he can, in my estimation, he must proceed under. That's where his ball is. He's got to proceed under Rule 17. You concur?
Oh, I do. Yeah, he's got to abandon. I mean, to put it into a real life example, it happened to me at Huntington Valley, way back when I'm playing at the Heinemann. I was starting on number 10.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't familiar with the golf course. I blocked my tee shot to the right, didn't know what was over there, and no one else seemed to know. So I hit a provisional ball because I thought it might be lost. And I did. Of course, my provisional went right in the middle of the fairway. And then when we walked down there, we all realized that it was a red penalty area. And I never found the ball, but I knew it was in there. I had virtual certainty. So at that point, I must abandon my provisional ball and then must proceed under now Rule 17 for my original, which was known or virtually certain to be in the penalty area.
That's correct. Now, and by the same token, you in this scenario, and now you walk down there and you don't know that the ball could be somewhere else rather than in that red penalty area. You look, and now you got a lost ball. Now you're playing your provisional.
Yeah, it's got to meet the standard of the knowledge or virtual certainty to
correct
to proceed under Rule 17. Otherwise, it would be lost, and then you would be able, if you didn't find it within 3 minutes, or have evidence of knowledge or virtual certainty within 3 minutes.
Correct.
Then the ball would be lost, and your provisional ball would be the ball in play.
Yep. Hopefully that answered the question. Good. Anything else? Any other questions?
Let's see. We got one here from Adam Augustine. Still cannot play a provisional ball when the ball is deemed to be in a penalty area. Is that correct?
Well, yeah. You wouldn't if you've already deemed you have virtual knowledge your ball is in a penalty area, then it wouldn't be a provisional ball. But if you say, hey, I've got this long carry over this thing. There's a lot of weeds and bushes on the other side of it, and now you can't tell whether that ball carried over that hazard or another dollar carried over that penalty area, or didn't. You're in doubt as to whether that ball's in there. You can't, in that situation, hit a provisional ball. It's against the rules to play a provisional ball because the rules state you can only play a provisional ball for a ball you think is lost outside a penalty area or out of bounds. So in this case, you're not doing that. You're saying, I can't tell if my ball is in the penalty area, so I'm going to play a provisional ball. If you do that, then that is going to be your ball in play under stroke and distance. And if you find your original ball, you can't play it. Did I clarify that for the gentleman or lady? I didn't hear the number.
The only thing I would add to that, I think that was perfectly. I think the principle is you cannot play a provisional ball solely because you think your ball might be in a penalty area. There has to be some other condition, a boundary, bushes. As long as one of the reasons you're playing the provisional ball is that it might be lost outside a penalty area or out of bounds, you're okay.
Correct.
But if only because the ball might be in a penalty area, you could not. Now, one thing to keep in mind, there is a model local rule in the back of the book. If you have a forced carry over a penalty area, there is a model local rule that you can put into effect, which would, in this case, it's contradictory to what we just said. It would allow you to play a provisional ball so that, and this is mainly to save time, so a player wouldn't have to go all the way around, assess if the ball's in the penalty area, because most likely, if they were proceeding under Rule 17, they'd have to go all the way back because of the forced carry. If you go back into the model local rules, you'll see that. And it's something to think about. It's a bit complicated, so I would be careful. We used to have people coming to me at Kennett, and they wanted us to put it into effect on the 16th hole, and I felt like it would be too it could have more issues than it would solve. So again, that would be a decision on your own for your club as to whether or not it would be a good thing.
Yeah, I'd have to concur. I would avoid it. It gets into some into the weeds.
Dan Taylor asked, is it possible to enact the local rule for out of bounds drop in normal play, but not for tournament play?
Well, sure. If you're publishing conditions of the competition for your tournament play, you would not include that. But if maybe on your scorecard, you have local rules and you want them to be in effect. Although I wouldn't do that either, because now you've got something on the scorecard which contradicts something in your conditions of the competition. So I wouldn't do that either. I would just somehow or other prohibit the rule, if you wish, in a high-level competition by the conditions of the competition, but make it known somehow that I don't like the idea of putting it on a scorecard. That local rule is in effect. I have all my local rules on the back of my scorecard, and but once again, if there's some kind of a rule that you would put into effect, the only time I have to put another one into effect is I'm doing preferred lies or something like that. Then I'll have a sign or a handout. But hopefully I've answered that question. I don't like that out of bounds rule on your scorecard. But you can definitely put it into effect and then abrogate it in a tournament.
Well, again, one thing that might be a reason to not do it, because you could have confusion.
Yeah.
Because the issue you have is, we call it the PDR issue. Players don't read. So every day your members or your customers are playing and they're using the local rule, and then they play in a little competition on the weekend, and you now take it out, and then they do it during the competition. Well, now you could argue they're being trapped to a degree. So I don't know. It's a conundrum that everybody has to deal with at their club. You got to make that decision. And you know what? You're the manager at that facility. You would have to make that call and be accountable for it. So as long as you do a good job communicating, perhaps you'd avoid the trap, and you'd be okay. But I don't know. I think probably and I'm not for private clubs where I'm not to use the example of more serious golf is played. It's probably not a good thing. Because then you're now you got to turn that light switch off for a competition, and I think you're opening the door up for potential confusion, if that makes any sense.
I think that makes perfect sense. By the way, you one-upped me there with that conundrum. Nice going.
By the way, have you ever drank Conundrum? It is a great wine. It's made by King. It's about a little over $20 a bottle, and it's called Conundrum, and it is outstanding. And you have no conundrum if you want to drink that bottle, because it's a bottle.
Is that a Cabernet?
It's a blend, actually.
Okay.
Dan Taylor just had a quick follow-up. I don't know if Clark or Tom want to handle this, or if anyone on the call wants to share theirs, but he asked if someone could send him an example of a hard card, including marking reference points, etc.
When you say marking reference points,
we can send him the section hard card.
Yeah.
Brian Schulte, I know, is on the line. If we want to send that to Dan, in other words, again, the hard card is and we're going to go over this on Tuesday next week. We're going to add it. We have a little section in there where we're going to talk about local rules and hard card, and it's designed to be helpful to how clubs. It's a recommendation on how clubs should deal with competitions. So Tuesday we're going to do that. In the interim, if we have a section hard card, we obviously the tours have one, USGA has one. Those are rules that are in effect for all the time. And then your terms of competition would deal with things specific to that competition.
Well,
we'll do that Tuesday.
Yeah, the gentleman mentioned reference points. Do you mean being able to demonstrate to your members how to take a proper drop? Are you referring to something like that?
If the person does not mark and the ball moves out of the spot.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I'll offer this up. I got a piece of AstroTurf, and it's a 96 That's 2 times 48. 96 inches wide because, and that's for taking back on the line relief. And then I just cut it in half otherwise. And if a member wants to know how to take a drop, I'll just take him out to outside, or take him. Actually, I like to take him out to the golf course, and then I'll show him by putting that thing down. What he have. What the exigencies of the drop there and the contingencies would entail. And I find that to be pretty helpful. So I keep that thing in my cart all the time, and it's very helpful or we have an indoor facility, and I'll use it there to show that, if that helps. And then you can just go ahead and show them, okay, here I put a tee down, and you put it right down and you measure 4 feet in the front of it, and you put the tee down, and you go from there. Or here I don't put the tee down, I just decide to drop it, and you drop it somewhere else. Now this becomes your reference point, and your area that you're going to drop it is different.
Yeah, that back on the line relief local rule, we're going to talk about that on Tuesday. We've mentioned it a couple times in the presentation. The one thing I would be emphasizing to your members and customers is put a T and mark the reference point. They don't have to, but if they do, there is a far less chance that they're going to have a problem if they mark it. And if they know the rule, forget the local rule for a moment. If they know the rule, they put a reference point down, and the ball are marked down, and the ball rolls forward of the reference of the mark, and they pick it up and they redrop it, they're never going to have a problem. Yep. Ever have a problem if they understand the rule is written and they use something to mark the reference point.
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, so before we wrap this up, I just want to remind everybody of some upcoming webinars that we do have scheduled. Tomorrow at 11 a.m., we have a webinar with our new section partner, The Golf Critique, and they will be touching not only on their platform, but their new COVID-19 initiative. We have on Monday, the invitation will be going out shortly today with Mike Mack and Steve Saracki, how to recognize common patterns in the golf swing. And then I'm sure you've all seen that we've added some new rules webinars to the series here. So next Tuesday and Thursday at the normal time, 9 a.m. And then Thursday, May 7th, we have an additional rules webinar. And then we're working to put something together with Michael Breed on branding and a basic Q&A. That'll probably be in the first week of May as well. So be on the lookout for that. Like I said, once we get our technical issue straightened out, we'll have these recordings up on the website. I apologize for the delay. If you have any questions, give me a shout. And I'd like to thank Clark for his time and effort today. I think it went very well. Thanks, Clark.
You're welcome.
With that, I wish everyone a great weekend if we don't see you tomorrow for the webinar, and please stay healthy.